I have just turned on the streaming and
Okay, so tell me when to start.
and okay, you have it.
Let's go ahead. Okay. So hi everybody. Thank you for coming to this session. I'm Marina Zhurakhinskaya. I'll talk about the outreach program for women, which I organized together with Karen Sandler, who until recently was the executive director of the GNOME Foundation, and now she's the executive director of the Software Freedom Conservancy. So about myself, I'm a community engagement lead at Red Hat, and I'm on the boards of the GNOME Foundation and the AID Initiative. And the AID Initiative is the organization that's dedicated to promoting participation of women in open technology and culture. And I also help with newcomers and interns initiatives at GNOME. So for example, I'm an administrator for GNOME's participation in Google Summer of Code. And so the Twitter handles are for me and for the Outreach Program for Women and for the AID Initiative. And those are good to kind of follow participation of women in open technology and culture overall. So the first outreach effort in GNOME took place in 2006 when GNOME received about 180 applications for Google Summer of Code, and none of them appeared to be from women. I wasn't involved at that time. People who did this were Chris Ball and Hannah Wallach, and with Maureen Duffy's help put together this poster. They created a first internship program, which was a 2-month internship. And one of the things that they did is instead of Google Summer of Code, competitive language, be a rock star, Purview is the best, they used a more collaborative language, emphasizing that this is an opportunity to work with a mentor and to learn. And for those who are not familiar, Google Summer of Code is Google's program where about 1,300 students a summer get a chance to work on free software projects, on a variety of free software projects, and get a stipend and have a mentor. So that was like just a one-time initiative in 2006. And then in 2009, I found myself at Guadic, and I was one of 8 women at Guadic, and I was perhaps the best established female developer for GNOME. And the board approached me and asked me to renew our outreach efforts. So before I go in to talk about the outreach program for women in depth, this is one motivation for the program, and this happened very recently at FOSDEM, where one of the participants in the program was approached by what I assume were well-meaning men who just expressed what I assume was a good surprise at seeing a girl at the conference. But encountering things like that actually makes women feel very uncomfortable. So what I'm referencing here is a great blog post by the AID Initiative called Breaking the Unicorn Law. And the Unicorn Law was formed around 2008 or 2009. And it says that every woman in free software will sooner or later be asked to talk about being a woman in free software. And I think that we're already we've made great strides in breaking that law. Like that was true around 2009, not so much true now. But I think it's important to keep in mind that not every woman participating in free software wants to talk about diversity or is an expert in diversity. And this blog post has excellent resources for learning about it without asking women in your community. But also incidents like this underscores the importance of having a support community for women and kind of groups of women where even women from different receptor projects can come together and feel that they belong in the space. Because there are more of us when we kind of come together from different receptor projects, even if any one individual project doesn't have very many participants. Since 2009, we've had 8 internship rounds, and this is a poster that was also designed by Marina from the last round, from the current round, advertising the current round. So Outreach Program for Women offers mentorship in different free sector projects anytime throughout the year, but specifically we offer paid remote internships, very much like Google Summer of Code, twice a year. So we've had 8 rounds of it, 8 rounds of internships. And we've had 170 participants with all those free software organizations, and Fedora is one of them. And I wanted to say, essentially, this is the companies and organizations that provide sponsorship, and those are the organizations that in the last 2 rounds provided 3 or more, sponsorship for 3 or more interns around, and these are organizations that provided sponsorship for 1 or 2 interns around. And Red Hat contributes my time to organizing the program, and Software Freedom Conservancy now contributes Karen Sandler's time to organizing the program, and Ropes and Grades and law firms that helped us draft contracts for participants and mentors. Here's what we found that worked. So first, addressing women, cis and trans and gender queer people directly. In particular, we talked to people with those identities, and we learned that the language of just saying women is exclusive by default. So it is important to say that the program is open to both cis and trans women. And unlike Google Summer of Code, we accept non-students and non-coders. And as you will see, about 50% of our participants are not students, so they would not have been eligible for Google Summer of Code. And also there are non-coding tasks as well as coding tasks available. So there's design, documentation, engagement, anything that can help a free software project thrive. And the very important part of how we run the program is having a collaborative application process. So during the application process, the organizations have their mentors listed on their program page, like the landing page, and the applicants are asked to contact a mentor, and they're required to complete a contribution that's relevant to the project that they want to work on. And actually it gets very competitive. So for Linux kernel, which is perhaps one of the more competitive organizations participating, applicants who end up being accepted end up contributing dozens of patches. And then the program time is a time for people to build their experience in free software. It's a dedicated focused opportunity that's financially supported. And one of the things that I also really like about this program is that we require the participants to blog at least every 2 weeks about their work, and their blog posts are aggregated on Women in Free Software Planet and also on the individual planets of the participating organizations. So Women in Free Software Planet is a fantastic read. I find it really, really inspiring. Also, this round, Sumana Harishwar stepped up as a volunteer career development advisor for the interns. So she holds office hours in IRC where the interns can discuss their next steps in building a career in free software. And another thing that we have is a $500 travel allowance to enable interns to come to conferences and events where they can meet the mentor and meet the community. And after the program, the participants stay engaged in various ways, and I'll have some statistics about that in a bit. And another thing that I learned, in particular from Jessica McKellar from Python community, is that it's very important to encourage women to propose talks and present at conferences. It's kind of another step in this chain of things where women often need more encouragement, and just inviting them to propose talks makes a great difference. So Jessica, she's a diversity chair for PIPE, and she asked like every woman she knows to propose a talk or to ask everybody else that they know, and as a result of her work, PIPE number of women presented at PIPE went from like single percentage numbers to 33% or as sort of the speakers this year. And another thing that I learned from Leslie Hawthorne is that often when we talk about internships like this, we talk about return on investment, like did the participants stick around? And I agree with Leslie that it's important to realize that by just haven't had a chance to share our values, and by just having mentored the participant and having had access to like influence how they think about free software, that was already a big privilege. And this is a time where people are exploring, and it's completely fine if some participants move on, like they will still carry on the values that they learned. And so as I said, Fedora has participated in 2 rounds, and Marina is the coordinator for Fedora's participation, and Ralph Bean, Jakub Krozek, and Luke Makin were some of the other people who mentored participants. And just going through the list here, Jessica Anderson worked on bug fixes and added documentation to data number. And Charul Agarwal added message count to data grabber and added data grabber messages in a Fedora packages overview tab. And Charul went on to do Google Summer of Code right now, working on Sham grabber. Stephanie Manuel worked on the usability test plan for Anaconda, and that was used for usability testing last year at DEF CON. Marie Nordin created over 70 beautiful badges for Fedora and created a Fedora badges style guide. And
she's here, by the way, in the conference.
Yeah, she's here, and I'm when it's finished, she has a talk. Yeah, so she has a talk this afternoon, so you can learn from her about her badges work. And Karen Tan worked on HyperKitty development, and HyperKitty is a new UI interface for mailmen. And Karen is also at the conference, and she has a background in user experience design, and she will be doing a talk also this afternoon about user experience design methods. And then Pallavi worked on SSID unit test for SSD, and Maria worked on some features for Fedora applications and Fedora packages. So that's Fedora's participants so far, and I'd like to encourage everybody here to talk to Maureen about becoming a mentor, and also participate or encourage other people to participate in the program. And here are examples of a few more projects from other organizations. So Stacey Stern worked on a twisted networking library for Python, and she wrote API documentation for twisted mail, and she did SMTP client and server tutorials. Elaine Ramos, who lives in Brno here in Czech Republic, she worked on the GNOME project, and she worked for a task manager for GNOME called Getting Things GNOME. And she added geolocation to tasks and tags, and added a feature where you can sort the tasks that you have by proximity. And Tashma Purana did her internship with Open Source Robotics Foundation, and she worked on a gazebo robot simulator for outdoor environments. And she wrote an OpenStreetMap plugin where she pulled in data from OpenStreetMap to represent buildings as polygons, represent roads, including the texture of the roads and the number of lanes and traffic signs in this simulated environment for robots. And Sayala Lankat worked on OpenStack, and she took the information from the accelerometer metering module and created graphs with it in a Horizon dashboard. So that's the kind of project that the interns do when they work for 3 months with a mentor remotely. And well, as a result, the number of participants, women participating in the GNOME community has increased. We just had Guadalajara last week, and we had about 23 women in attendance. Actually, that's lower than last year. Last year we had about 40, and the reason for that is that as the outreach program expanded to other organizations, we are now seeing fewer women in GNOME because women have no choice about which free software project to work with. And as I said, the program alums, they go on to do talks and find employment with sponsoring organizations. They go on to do Google Summer of Code, Hacker School, and mentor other participants. And also, they take on leadership in free software. So Meg Ford started at Chicago's Hacker and GNOME group, and Marcel Schumann started an aerobic school, which is like Hacker School. Sadaf Dida started Women in Free Software India group, and Katerina Gerasimova became a GNOME Foundation board member. And another really neat statistic that I'd like to share is that last summer, the applicants and the participants for the Linux kernel came ahead of some of the industry heavyweights in their contributions to the Linux kernel. And in the GNOME community, we've had improvements for everybody. So a list that started with about 7 mentors for the first round of the outreach program for women. We've made that a general resource, and it now has over 40 mentors that newcomers to the GNOME community can approach anytime throughout the year to get help starting to contribute. Another thing that we did is we applied the same principles that we're doing for the outreach program for women for our participation in Google Summer of Code. So we also require a contribution and it requires working with the mentor during the application process, and also blogging about the internship work every 2 weeks, and all the blogs are aggregated on Planet GNOME. So especially like now during the summer when we have both OPW and GSOC interns, Planet GNOME makes for a really colorful read with all the news from our interns. So having done 8 rounds of the outreach program for women, we feel like we have a good sense of, like that's a model that works. Like it really does help women get involved in free software, build out the experience, and go on to do even more stuff in free software. And with the help of efforts like this, like with outreach program for women and other efforts, the participation of women in Google Summer of Code has been steadily climbing up to be about 10% this year. But another program that Google does is for high school students, and it's called Google Coding. And when I saw those numbers, I was like, our work is really cut out for us with outreach program for women, because outreach program for women is for women 18 and older, and Google Coding is for 13 to 17-year-olds. So in the last 2 years, there was only 1 girl who was a grand prize winner among 40 grand prize winners. And there were also, like, this year there were 10% of participants were girls, but none of them went on to win the grand prize. So that's like one aspect of what, like, who else are we not reaching? So we're not reaching girls in free software. And like so because we understand how the program works now, we would like to see how we can expand it. And so here are some other statistics that we looked at. to try to see like who else are we not reaching. So for example, we also looked at the education for the participants in the last 2 rounds, and most of them have or are pursuing a college degree. Almost 50% of them are pursuing a graduate degree or have a graduate degree. So another interesting number is 53% of students, even though Google Summer of Code is open to students, but we have some different projects that are not in Google Summer of Code. But also like everybody else who's not a student would not have been eligible to participate. And like looking at those numbers, it still tells us that we're not reaching people who don't have access to higher education, while free software is actually a great way to get started in technology even without a degree. So that's one takeaway from those numbers. And then these are just some numbers of like countries that were reasonably well represented in OKW and also reasonably well represented in Google Summer of Code, and in the survey, in the flow survey that was done, it was over 2,000 participants last year. So those numbers are fascinating in different ways. Like you can kind of see that in the United States, we have more participants in average for women from the United States than from India, but there are more participants in Google Summer of Code from India than from the United States, and like that can be explained by groups for women in technology being really prevalent in the United States. You could also see numbers for the Czech Republic. Perhaps more awareness of Google Summer of Code would be great here. So this is who is reasonably well represented. But here are like some countries that I went through the list, and just to give us an idea of people who are not participating in free software at all. So you can see that a lot of countries in Middle East and Africa and Asia, there is barely any participation in either Google Summer of Code or the flow survey. And another thing that we're really well aware of is that we don't have statistics for it, but we know anecdotally that there are very few participants of color in free software. And looking at the information for the United States, actually the number of people who graduated from college with CS degrees for people of color is roughly the same as their representation in society. But we're not seeing them in free software, and also recently companies like Google and Twitter have released their data about their diversity makeup in their teams. So they had both like women in technology data, which Google had 70% of women in technology, and Twitter had 10% of women in technology roles. But both Google and Twitter had only 1% of black people in technology roles. So those are like some kind of background information about who else is underrepresented in addition to women. And now like I did a small survey of some of the projects that are trying to address various aspects of underrepresentation. So the AIDA initiative is an organization that's dedicated to women, to increasing participation by women in open technology and culture. And they take like a more systematic approach to the problem. They help organizations and people fight sexism. They help adopt anti-harassment policies for communities and conferences. They also have materials for the allied skills training, which are online, and I really recommend checking them out. And they also have a workshop for imposter syndrome, which is kind of internalized sexism by women. And also they run a conference for women in open technology and culture called AIDA Camp. And I've been to 3 AIDA camps in the United States, and The next ones are coming up in Berlin and Bangalore this fall, and the application process is now open. So if it's local to you or close to you regionally, and you identify as a woman, I'd really encourage attending ADA camp, and I'm happy to talk about this more afterwards with anybody who's interested. And so another project that I really love and is a STEM project that was started by Lucas Black from Mozilla. And the goal for a STEM project is to reach people who are not only underrepresented but also from underprivileged backgrounds, so who don't necessarily have college education and who have to live kind of paycheck to paycheck. So they really need. Thing about this program is that it offers a $50 a day financial support for all the participants, and also offers laptops that people can keep if they successfully finish the program. So this program addresses the people who would not necessarily be yet in a place in their life to participate in a program like OPW, like a remote internship. Lucas's motivation for this is that she came from a job where she was working in a restaurant kitchen and had to work paycheck to paycheck, and when she realized the opportunities of technology and the upward mobility it brings, and became a release engineer at Mozilla, she wanted to make this opportunity available to more people from a similar background. And what the participants will be learning is JavaScript and automated testing for Mozilla, and also just meeting the pre-software community and learning about the opportunities. And the first 6-week pilot is going to be in Portland, Oregon, this fall, and then the next 6-week program is planned for New Orleans. Two other organizations that definitely reach out to women in a lot of their activities are Software Carpentry and OpenHedge. And Software Carpentry does bootcamps where they teach the tools of free software that scientists can use. And OpenHedge does an open source comes to campus workshop. And so, for example, they often work together with a women in computer science from campus to make sure to invite women to their event. And OpenHedge is running dozens of workshops around the United States, but they're not very present in Europe, but they have excellent resources. They have open source comes to campus in the box resources, excellent training missions that they use at their workshops. So I'd really like to encourage people to check out their resources and perhaps replicate it where you live locally. Replicate the open source comes to campus workshop. And then there are definitely lots and lots of groups for encouraging girls and women's participation in technology. These are just two examples, and the reason I picked Women Who Code is that they're doing a series of meetups in the San Francisco area where they help women start contributing to free software with an explicit goal of helping them apply for Outreach Program for Women, Google Summer of Code, or Google Code-In. And other groups like that are Pi Ladies and Railsbridge, for example. And then ChickTech, I picked them because they're explicitly dedicated to introducing girls to free software as well. So they use Drupal, Arduino, and they teach girls to install Ubuntu, and it'd be great if somebody taught girls to install Fedora. And other groups that work with girls and teach girls to code, Pearl Hacks, Black Girls Code, and Tech Girls. Like, these are mostly groups I know in the United States. I'd love to hear about more such groups in Europe that we can connect to. So these are like initiatives that are already happening, and other people are doing them, and I'm very happy about that. So for the outreach program for women, we're looking to expand it into a more general outreach program, and with the For the next round, which is going to be in the winter, we're going to open it to the Ascent project graduates, so it's just going to be open to about 20 participants of the Ascent project in Portland, but regardless of their gender, and this is kind of a pilot for us to expand beyond just being open to women. And also, I'd really like to encourage efforts to reach out to girls and help them contribute to free software and participate and win Google Coded. So to that extent, I'd like us to work with some of those groups that I mentioned, like Chick Tac and Black Girls Code and so on, with girls who already learn to code, and also connect them with OPW alums and mentors in their area who can mentor them one-on-one in participation in free software and in Google Coded. And so here are some ideas for how you can get involved with some of these efforts, especially the OPW. So for Fedora, there's a mailing list and an IRC channel which you can hang out on and help people who are interested, and also step up as a mentor. If you come from a background where you feel that people like you are underrepresented in free software, or you want to work on those initiatives, please talk to me. We definitely need more volunteers, and especially more people doing stuff like this in different geographical areas. It's a very hands-on kind of thing that we need to be doing. And then you can apply to participate. You can help us spread the word. We make an email available, like a sample email that you can send to your university available when we start an application process. We're present on Twitter. You can just retweet. You can encourage somebody you know personally to apply to participate, or you can apply to participate. You can become a mentor, as I mentioned. If you are involved with an organization other than Fedora, you might like to get that organization to participate in OPW. And if you have an access to a budget to sponsor a Fedora or a non-Fedora but a different free software projects internship, please talk to me. We need support for the next round. So right now is actually an excellent time to think about the next round, because we are planning to start the application process in the beginning of September. So August is the month when we're going to be approaching people for participation and sponsorship as organizations. And also you can help by donating to the GNOME Foundation to help us build up the infrastructure for growing the program, and all the information is on the program's website, gnome.org OPW. And so here are some just references for like the data I presented, and the link to the Breaking the Unicorn law article, and then the talking about the Creative Commons license and the Twitter accounts. And so that's all I had, and we have about 15 minutes for questions, and I'll just like leave this slide for inspiration.
I have a question. So some of the things I see from people, so when I talk to people, I'm a mentor of the program, so when I talk to people about becoming mentors in the OPW, one of the feedback I get is, I don't know how to mentor. You know? So since the program is it's all about mentoring, do you have any feedback, or have you heard something about someone asking how to mentor other, how to become a mentor, and how to, learn how to mentor people? Because it's not easy. Like you do have to find the right words. You do have to have the right attitude to teach people and make sure they are on the right, on the road and on track and getting things done. Sharing thoughts and if like giving tasks if they don't have some. And so many people have said that they don't know how to mentor. So I was wondering whether you have an idea of how we can teach other people how to mentor.
Okay, so we started building up the resources on the like info for mentors, the internship time page. And like one of the things that we recommend there in particular is having an IRC office hours at least once a week, if not twice a week, for the intern. And we also have some techniques like for how to address if you don't see enough participation from your intern, like what are the ways to address it. But also the link to other resources from the information from mentors pages. So Google Summer of Code has a very extensive a guide for mentors that we'll link to.
Okay.
And if you have ideas for what we should have on the OPW page, so we have already like several things like here's what we ask mentors to do. But if you have ideas for what else we should have there, like please just go ahead and edit it or talk to me about it. And like we have to kind of strike a balance between being shorter for things that like we really find are essential, and then being longer for just pointing people to the good Google Summer of Code like mentors manual, which has a lot of information on best practices.
Cool.
Yeah.
There is a question from the IRC from Maureen. Where can people get your slides?
Oh, I always post them, usually post them on Outreach Program for Women, wiki.gnome.org/Outreach Program for Women/spread the word. And there's like a presentation materials section, which already has a lot of slides, and I'll post those slides there as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I get the last program of outreach program for women, and I spread the word. I personally emailed something like 25 women. Most of them were just finishing her degrees. And actually I get to directly talk to two girls that happens to be within the Fedora group in Nicaragua. And one of them told me that she think that was not good enough for applying. And I think it was not true. And the other was good enough for programming, but was saying that she was not good enough in English. And I feel was ashamed that they didn't really apply.
Yeah, but you did your best. It sounds like you did your best.
Yes, but I was thinking if it's possible to have kind of a mediator, like having somebody that is not properly a mentor, but a mentor for applying.
Yeah, that'd be great, and you can be that person. Just step up and be that person, and like I said, I encourage everybody to encourage people in person to apply and help them through the steps that are best. Like the best help that somebody can get is the local help. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that we're trying to address here is that a lot of women felt too intimidated by Google Summer of Code, so even fewer women were applying for Google Summer of Code, and of course we would like more women to step up and to apply and to participate, and we try to create as supportive of an environment and an application process as possible, and also I think it's important to realize that. Even for women who are applying and participating in the application process and make that contribution, even if they're not accepted, they're learning and they are gaining the experience just by participating in the application process. And
I told Sir that even if they're not accepted, they get the knowledge how to apply for the next time.
Yes, and in fact, we have a really high percentage of participants who were not accepted the first time they applied, but were accepted in a future round, like continued participating and were accepted in a future round. So, yeah, please continue encouraging people.
So, other than Red Hat and doing internships, which is something we can do, and the mentoring things that increasing the amount of mentoring, what can Fedora do organizationally to improve is there interaction with this program in particular, but also just diversity in general,
Yeah,
organization of this.
right. So as, for the average program for women, of course, you can have as many interns as there are funds and mentors, and that'd be great. Having a large participation in the program. But other things that Fedora can do is devise, or I'm not sure if one already exists, but a sort of a newcomers workshop that is suitable for somebody who perhaps doesn't even have a Fedora installed. Like for example, for GNOME we have a GNOME newcomers workshop, and we have USB keys that actually have Fedora on them for people to try out GNOME or try out Fedora, because the virtual images are of Fedora in virtual machines, even if they have a different system, and learn how to contribute. But also just starting like locally in your communities with something like an open hatch workshop that's a lot more general, but also modeling using Fedora. And so doing this kind of skills and introduction workshops and reaching out to women in technology groups locally to invite them to participate or to do the workshop together with that group. So that's, I think that's one idea I have right now, but I'll keep thinking.
Yeah, and those are good, somewhat like individual things that people can do, or we can maybe organize some of those kind of things, but I'm also thinking of organizational, structural things that we can do in Fedora that could help, and I don't expect you to have an immediate answer to that.
Right.
But that's it.
I think it's mostly like reaching out and inviting people. I think what really works with the outreach program for women internships is that they give the amount of time that somebody needs to really dive in and gain that experience, which you might not be able to gain over a single workshop.
The workshop can be more like a taster to get people to plant the seed, and then you can leverage that to encourage more people to apply for the full program.
Right. Or like doing meetups that are kind of Fedora focused.
That's a good idea for us to do more.
Yeah. Are there more questions? Cool. Well, thank you for attending.
Now I go there. I sew on a hoodie.
Right here? Okay.
Give me a full yeah, I'm not getting enough for an answer.
Local women already Fedora contributors those episodes.
Where are you going now?
I don't know.
I got a cold, so this is a fucking cold.
Well, there's, Will was talking about kind of 6.
Beer garden.
I'll have a meeting now.